Hey, Mark, good to see you. Come on over. We're just getting going in just a moment. All right. Eli should be popping in any second. Hey, what's up, everybody? We are just starting to get going here any second. All right. I'm going to start bringing some people on up. All right, just hold on 1 second. We are into the countdown. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Music News Power Hour on the Music Industry City Broadcast Network. And hopefully you are finding the Clubhouse room, because we're going to call this one a Clubhouse Mulligan Day. It's been crazy. People can't find the room. So if you know some regulars, feel free to please ping them into the room. They might need the direct link because people have been having a problem finding all these different rooms. So we're going to be talking about, in the meantime, we're going to be talking about YouTube Content ID. Mechanical Licensing collects $40 million. EDC, Vegas is rescheduled, and Apple adds podcast subscriptions, and Joe Rogan's traffic drops. We're going to be talking a little about podcasting and what's going on in the land of Facebook and Spotify and Apple. And plus, again, your daily Spotify update. It's Thursday. We have a lot to discuss, but let's first welcome my co-host, Eli Window. Eli, hey.
Hi, Peter. It's good to see you. I found the room. I was one of the folks who had trouble finding the room. It's good to be here. How are you?
I know you. I pinged you in. I don't know if you got the ping, and then I sent you a text message, and I don't know if you got that. And it's like, so even like the co-host of the room can't find the room. So
it's kind of a mulligan day in Clubhouse, but we're glad that everybody found us. We're going to keep trying to ping our friends in here. We invite you to do the same.
Right on.
Yeah, I did not see the room in my hallway.
Yeah,
I had to click on the sort of top section where it's in my events.
Right. So, all right. So just for everybody, this is where we scour the World Wide Web for music business news that we think should be opened up for discussion. And we're going to start that very shortly. But we also want to welcome everybody else tuning in on our live stream. Feel free to say hi in the chat and add any questions or comments. How this works is we read key sections of articles for like the first 20 minutes or so and open up the stage for continued discussion for the remainder of the hour. Feel free to raise your hand during the topic if you'd like to discuss or bring something to the table. If there's something that you would hands like to, hands up. All right. And if you enjoy this and want to tune into all our programming and networking events, tap the green house on the top, or go to musicindustrycity.com to get the weekly schedule and updates. And also to access the show notes. We put all the links to the articles that we cover, and that you can find at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic, and you'll have access to the show notes, so you can follow along at home. Anyway, let's get this rocking, and we're going to start off with This Day in History with my co-host Eli.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Let's go ahead and jump in. On this day, 2016, Prince was found dead at his home in Minnesota at the age of 57 after police were summoned to his Paisley Park estate and found his body in a lift. On this day, April 21st, 2016, American rock, blues, and country singer-guitarist Lonnie Mack died of natural causes in a hospital near his log cabin home, 70 miles east of Nashville, Tennessee. In memory, Lonnie Mack and Prince. Moving on, birthdays today. Born today, 1947, American singer-songwriter musician and actor James Osterberg, Iggy Pop, member of the Stooges and solo artist. He is sometimes credited with the invention of stage diving. And where would we be without stage diving? Let's be real. Happy birthday. Birthdays today, also born on this day, 1958. Mike Barson, keyboardist from English ska band Madness. Also born this day, 1959, singer, songwriter, and musician Robert Smith with the English rock band The Cure. Happy birthday. On this day in history, 2001, REM guitarist Peter Buck was charged by police at Heathrow Airport with being drunk on an aircraft and assaulting British Airways crew. Buck was taken into custody after landing on a flight from Seattle and being questioned by police for 12 hours. On this day, 2013, Calvin Harris made chart history by becoming the first artist to have 8 top 10 hits from one studio album. On this day, 2015, Phil Rudd, drummer of AC/DC, changed his plea to guilty on a charge of a threat to kill in a court in Tauranga, New Zealand. The court heard Rudd was unhappy about his album's launch party and asked for a former employee to be taken out, quote unquote. He had previously denied the charge. He also pleaded guilty to cannabis and methamphetamine possession. The court heard that he had fired a number of employees last August after the launch of his solo album, Head Job. And that's it for this day in history.
That is a interesting little piece, a tidbit of this day in history. I always get a kick out of some of these random things that we come across. It's a lot of fun. It's like, you know, what was it? What was the Phil Spector one? It was like, and this is the day when Phil Spector pulled a gun out on Lear Cohen or something.
Right. You know what? Some of these just, I hate to say it, but it's almost like watching the Jerry Springer show version of our Music News Power Hour right here, because it makes me feel better. It makes me feel like my day isn't going so badly, you know?
Right on. All right. So we are going to get into news just saying, but Eli, I just want to point out, because of the Clubhouse issues today, if you could also, and I'm going to be doing it, make sure to PTR, because sometimes we're not seeing when guests come, listeners come into the room. So you have to kind of constantly refresh, because I know some of our normal cast of characters are going to arrive hopefully at some point when they can find the room, you know, the wonderful technical marvels. So, all right, let's get to this, the news. All right, and once again, you can go to musicindustrycity.com and click on the Clubhouse Information Center logo, and that'll take you to the show notes, and you can follow along with the links and articles that we are talking about. And this first one is from CompleteMusicUpdate.com. We talked about this last week, and it's a little update here. Maria Schneider says she can't meet YouTube's demands in Content ID access case without access to Content ID. All right, so the back and forth continues between musician Maria Schneider and YouTube in the legal dispute over who has access to the latter's Content ID rights management system. YouTube says it needs more information about all the places where Schneider's songs are being used without license on the platform. She counters that we want to know that too, which is why she needs to access, and this is what the article says, is why she needs to access the fucking Content ID. Snyder's lawsuit, which originally also involved film director and his anti-piracy company Pirate Monitor, argues that while YouTube's Content ID system is pretty good at helping rights owners find and deal with any videos on the site that contain their content without permission, too few creators and rights owners have access to it, and that the manual systems for requesting content be removed from YouTube, example, what everyone else has to use, are pretty mediocre. All right, so these websites, you know, like are obliged to take down if they want to, you know, benefit from the copyright safe harbor and avoid liability. So what they're saying is the litigation is now in the discovery phase, with both sides making demands of each other. And she goes on, in recent filing in court, YouTube says that while it has more or less agreed a case schedule with Schneider's side, the two parties still, quote, disagree about a critical issue of case management, where the plaintiff, Maria Schneider, must identify the copyrighted works and alleged infringements of those works at issue, and do so by clear deadlines that give defendants a fair opportunity to take discovery into each infringement claim. It goes on, Schneider's complaint alleges she owns 3 copyrighted works that were infringed on YouTube. It does not identify a single YouTube video that she claims is infringing. Instead, Snyder contends that her potential copyright claims against YouTube are boundless. She also insists that she is allowed to put at issue dozens of unpleaded works and allegedly infringing videos, and that she can do so whenever she wants. Plaintiff's approach is misguided. So it goes on to much more in details, and it's an interesting case, and might open up, set some new precedents. So we don't know what's going to happen there. Interesting to pay attention to for this one. All right, moving over to Billboard. The MLC collects $40 million for January, makes first rights paid holders. All right, on Friday, this last week, the Mechanical Licensing Collective, which officially launched January 1st, made its first distribution of mechanical royalties to rights holders for the month of January, paying out $24 million out of $40 million collected from digital services. Quote, the completion of the MLC's first monthly processing of royalties and the payment of more than $24 million in royalties directly to rights holders represents another step toward realizing the promise of the Music Modernization Act, Alyssa Coleman, chair of the MLC Board of Directors, said in a statement. What's more, the MLC is also holding another $4.9 million in royalties where songs have been matched to royalties, but where publishing ownership stakes are as of yet unclaimed. It is holding on to another $11 million in royalties that is neither matched to songs nor publishers, for a total of $15.9 million, awaiting identification so the funds can be distributed. Overall, the MLC said that the mechanical pool of revenues amounted to slightly more than $53 million in royalties, which means that direct deals between services and publishers account for approximately $13 million. All right, so it goes on in more details here. So, consequently, the MLC, it matched 80% of the royalties reported to the musical works with songs in its public database, which, according to public statements by organizations like Music Reports, a competitor to Harry Fox Agency, is how much it typically matches on its first pass-through of play reports. Even with the 80% match, the MLC's reported payouts mean that about 30% of the $53 million in the mechanical royalty pool are unclaimed if you consider the $11 million royalties that have yet to be matched to songs, and the $4.9 million where the songs have been matched to recordings, but not all the publishers have been identified. So it goes on to some of the burdens of, being able to get these matched up. And, they're saying the finalized, they have now 75 people working there, and that doesn't count the board and committee members. So a ton of work has gone into them getting this far in just a short period of time. And he expects improvement. Aaron says expects improvements these months. One thing that will improve matching efforts will be the new membership. Since beginning of January, more than 1 million have been added to the database, and now the membership pace is moving along at a clip of over 1,000 new members a month. Quote, those registrations alone will drive improving in matching, and also we will continue to improve our internal processes. Does anybody have any familiarity with the MLC and what is going on, or have any dealings with them? Yeah, it's a new thing. So it's like publishers, labels, artists. It's a whole different thing. So we're going to move on to EDC. So the Electric Daisy car on this one is in Polestar. Headline is EDC Las Vegas postponed to October, citing new vaccination requirements. Goes on, Electric Daisy Carnival Las Vegas is postponed from May 21st to the 23rd to October 22nd to the 24th because of a change in Clark County, Nevada, reopening plans that require 60% of its residents to be vaccinated against COVID-19 before large-scale gatherings like EDC can take place. Insomniac founder Pasquale Rotella announced via social media Tuesday evening. Tickets purchased for the May dates will automatically be transferred to the new dates, or ticket holders may elect to receive a refund at this location. I am sorry to say that EDC Las Vegas needs to move to October, he posted in his social media accounts and continued, I want to thank everyone who has put their hearts and soul into the show, the Insomniac team, artists, agents, managers, production crews, the Las Vegas Motor Speedway staff, the government officials who supported us, and most importantly, you, the headliners. Rotella explains that he and his team were assured prior to announcing the May dates that less than 2 weeks ago that Nevada state officials would lift social distancing requirements as of May 1st, thus assuring EDC a path forward with strict safety guidelines in place. He further states that he and the EDC team met with Las Vegas police, fire, medical, and other agencies as recently as Friday to plan out details surrounding the event. But on April 20th, Clark County announced the vaccination rate requirement, which Rotella says, quote, unfortunately, the rate at which people get vaccinated before EDC is out of our control. It might happen in time. It might not. Either way, we can't take that risk. And he, in a statement, he also points out that currently there are already more than 40 trucks en route to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, the site of EDC. The full lineup was booked and was to be announced on Wednesday at noon. He goes on, the team and I are heartbroken, as many of you are. For those who have stayed with us on this journey, I thank you. Your trust and loyalty is what gives us strength. Keep moving forward. So, yeah, I mean, things are starting to open up. A lot of people had said this seems to be something of a big gamble, and there was some pressure that was, like to get it going, get it out there. It was a great attempt. Like, they pushed forward saying like, hey, we're going to make this happen. You hear of some other Live Nation events that are looking at, which we discussed in the past, talking about opening up in new festivals or smaller festivals and events in areas that have looser COVID restrictions. And, this is one of those times where it's like, hey, we wish it all was going to go well, but it seems that, the last minute, there's always last minute changes that are going to affect this. Any thoughts on this?
I just want to chime in and say I recall how excited we were in this clubhouse room when EDC was announced, and everyone was saying, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be a huge step forward, a leap forward for the future of the touring industry." And so, just remembering that enthusiasm for the announcement of EDC, I'm sure that this is sad news for all of us for a variety of reasons to hear
Yeah,
this, but safety first.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So, and here's some other discussions that go along with the fact about opening up. I mean, we're talking about vaccine passes, and this one was out of Forbes, and this was a few days ago. Arizona becomes sixth state to ban coronavirus vaccine passports, and they also have the full list. And it said Arizona Governor Doug Ducey signed an executive order earlier this week to ban state and local governments from mandating vaccine passports, making Arizona the sixth state to denounce the passes that will allow holders to prove they've been vaccinated against coronavirus as Republicans continue to ramp up a political culture war issue. All right, so I know some Montana governor in isolation after testing positive for coronavirus signed an executive order on April 14th that will ban both the state government and businesses from requiring proof of vaccination to protect, quote, individual liberty and personal privacy, though he added he still encourages constituents to receive a vaccine. And then there's Idaho, and then Texas governor, we remember Texas opening up, and also Florida and Utah. So these are the other states. I mean, we talk about New York State with the Excelsior Pass. I mean, it's things like privacy issues. Can it be hacked? All that can be into play. So, any thoughts? Well, I mean, it's can we enforce something like that? And that's where the federal government and the state governments have different where who has control over what, and then it comes to are the promoter, like, how do the promoters, how does Live Nation get involved in this, saying, okay, we have to check, or somebody's going to be at the gate at the turnstile checking all the digital wallets and passports and the vaccine passports and everything. Any thoughts?
It just has serious potential for clusterfuck. I mean, I support, I'm vaccinated. I support vaccines, and it's just more about how, there really are just two countries that we live in, and everything gets politicized. And that used to be something that our industry was, for the most part, apolitical. Everybody could come together and enjoy the music and get away from life for a few hours, but sadly that's becoming a big thing too now.
And yeah. All right, so we're gonna shift gears, but first let's check in with the weather.
All right, taking a look at your local weather in your neck of the woods today. Before you put a sweater on your dog, be sure to check with the dog first and ask if he needs it. And that's what your local weather looks like today.
All right, thank you for that, Eli. Yeah, and also like you guys sometimes you got to make sure they have to put their stuff on their paws because you don't want to get that. It's like we got to make sure we're looking out for our pets.
Yeah, you have to sometimes you have to do the little booties. Although my I don't know about anybody else's pet. When I put the booties on my dog, he starts doing the like Rockettes high step and trying to step out of the booties. He's not a fan, so
Right.
he'd rather just slop through the puddles.
Right.
She said booties. Sorry, I had to go butt head on that.
So
This
I
is
love you.
slightly on, slightly off topic, but there's a podcast by this guy named Jeff Dwoskin. He's a comedian in Detroit, and he does an interview with Burt Ward, the guy who played Robin on Batman and Robin, the original. And the guys have a dog farm now where they save thousands and thousands of Great Danes. They give them double the lifespan. It's really interesting. I don't have any, it's just really interesting. I think you might like it. Sorry for the parentheses.
I love that too. Dog news always welcome.
Yeah.
dog news, yes, we'll have
Mhm.
we'll have to have our own dog news segment. So, but let's talk a little bit about audio. So this one is in Wired.com. What is hi-fi audio, and should you pay more for it? And we're kind of leading up. I'm grouped this together because we're going to also talk about some podcasts and like subscriptions and tiers and things like that. So it starts off. Here's a riddle: if higher quality audio sounds better and better sounding music is more enjoyable, then shouldn't you stream music in the highest possible audio quality? The answer is yes. Listen to music in the highest possible quality. You'll love the shimmering drum cymbals that keep singing out loud after they've been hit. I mean, it goes on. So there's all like, filler lead up in this, but, there's no initiation sequence of members card to become an audiophile. If you love hearing the finer details, then dive in. They talk about John Fari, a label relations manager at Amazon Music, describes a specific example of a level of detail as possible with high resolution audio streaming at 24-bit, 48 hertz. Pharrell Williams' production and Kendrick Lamar's All Right truly shines in UHD, also referred to as Amazon high-res audio. So it goes on like, talking about differences and can you hear the difference in the quality? You need special equipment. It's what they're talking about here is saying like the tiers. It's like, do you need to spend all this different money for, are we people going to say, hey, I will pay for title, I will pay for different price tiers and, Cobas and things like that. And so I just pulled off the article here. Hold on one second there. Sorry about that. And here we go. Because the article here is they're talking about, pricing tiers and everything that's going on. And, should, the price of Amazon Music HD. So like Tidal breaks down to show also how much it makes. And so for these platforms to offer high def audio, it's costing them more. So assuming it's like, for this Tidal breaks down to its cost to show that it makes a gross profit of $5.30 for its $19.99 a month hi-fi plan compared to making $2.30 for its standard premium plan. Similar to streaming video, takes more bandwidth to stream higher quality music. The service is paying more to these host files, than to each listener. So, price of Amazon's music's high def varies on whether you're also a Prime subscriber. If you are, it costs $12.99 a month versus $14.99 a month for non-Prime members. And Qobuz's Studio Premiere plan is $12.49 a month, and if you pay it annually, or $14.95 a month if you would rather not commit that far in advance. And Spotify has not announced its pricing for its Spotify Hi-Fi tier yet. Chances are it would be competitive and fit right in with the rest of these other services as well. So does anybody subscribe to Hi-Fi, and would you pay like an extra, $2 a month or $5 a month to listen to Hi-Fi?
I do not subscribe to any of those services, but and I don't think that the vast majority of people can hear those differences given the limited methods that we use these days to actually listen to music, using our phones or, provided headphones and such. The people that have systems capable of reproducing the super hi-fi audio is a very, very, very small percentage of listeners.
I could actually read your mind, Elliot, right through. Like listening to Peter talk, I was like, I guarantee I'm going to defer to the person who actually does audio for a living and wait till he answers this. If he doesn't, I'll chime in with the same response. But then when I heard you say that, I went, and there he is.
and add on top of that, my 25 years working on rock and roll stages and attending concerts on my off days, my hearing is vastly inferior to what it used to be, and all of that also is naturally deteriorating with age. So you're now segmenting to a very, very small sliver of the population.
And let's not forget that I don't want to say failed, because I don't think failed is the right word, but that attempt at making this matter by Neil Young and his company when they created that MP3 player that was not an MP3 player, but it was a portable sort of FLAC lossless, like the best, most high quality version files. And you had to have a special player and a special thing, and you had to pay special, and nobody bought it, and it went under in like a short amount of time.
And I doubt he has the hearing from his long career in rock and roll for it to be, it's negligible at best.
True story.
And do artists get any higher, payout for people that are, subscribing to the higher profit makers that the corporations are making, or is it, just a money grab?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, because it's, they go back to when people are talking about, the per stream rate. I mean, there really isn't such a thing as a per stream rate. That's just what they get from people doing calculations. I mean, there's so many different type of deal structures in the live streaming platform, because you look at it saying, if you're paying more, but you say, go to Spotify and you say, what is the duo plan? What's the family plan? And are they paying less out for people that are using that plans? And, you do that math and you say, well, if you have 1 million people paying individual plans, great. Now, if those 1 million people decide all to become a couple and they want to go on the duo plan, and it's not cut in half, it's cut about 40%, whatever that the pricing rate turns out. But now Spotify is getting less revenue, but are they paying out less because the people are on that plan? I don't believe that is the case. I think it's just all part of the deal structure, and if the revenue doesn't affect what the payouts are. But we're going to continue with subscriptions, and Apple unveils its podcast subscriptions and a redesigned Apple Podcast app. All right, and this one
Just quickly, Peter, I'm so sorry to bust in, but before we go on, I wanted to let everybody know that we are having some glitch issues with Clubhouse for iOS today. And so if you're trying to ping friends in, I don't know about you, but I'm having difficulty pinging friends in. Please keep trying, and we're sorry for the difficulties on Clubhouse today. We seem to be having some mulligan glitchy stuff happening in the room. Peter, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
Thank you for that. Yeah, because it's kind of like thrown me off. It's like, because we can't even see when people enter the room. So, and I don't know if anybody else can see it, but we have to refresh. I'm refreshing every minute or so just to see if somebody else has entered the room. And I was having a hard time, like if people raised their hand to come up to the stage, it was taking forever. So there's been a lot of issues. Eli couldn't even find the room, and she was listed as a co-host, and she couldn't even find the room. So there's been a lot of this going on this morning. So thanks for bearing with us. It's throwing me off my game.
If you guys need to mod me for just a day, I'm looking at my screen the whole time, so I'm happy to invite people up or approve them if they raise their hands if you need help.
That's cool. Thank you for that. I think the problem is a glitch with the app, because we're able, we can kind of invite people up, but it's really super glitchy. And for example, when I was looking for the room today, I couldn't find it. And I've had a couple other people say they couldn't see the room out in the hallway today. So Something weird is up. Thanks for your help modding with
Yeah.
moderator duties, Angela. Something weird is happening today.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question, a Clubhouse 101? When I try and ping somebody, when I tap their face, does it ping them right away, or do I then have to hit the share button?
It should ping them right away.
Thank you.
If they don't have their notifications on, though, it actually should give you an alert that says they don't have their notifications on, so they may not actually be seeing that ping. So just give them a text if you have another means.
Understand. Thank you.
Right on. All right. Back to our regularly scheduled program. It's just been a fun day. We are just like totally off script. We don't care anymore. We're just going to have some fun with this, and let's just make it happen. So, and anybody else that's looking at the live stream, it's like I'm looking over some people just like laughing, like this is awesome entertainment. So, thanks, Steve. Good to see you out there. Anyway, this is in TechCrunch. Apple unveils podcast subscriptions with a redesigned Apple Podcast app. The article starts off, after years of increased competition from Spotify, Apple today announced its own expansion into podcast subscriptions at the company's spring event earlier yesterday. So Apple unveiled its plans for podcasts, allowing listeners to unlock, quote, additional benefits like ad-free listening, early access to episodes, and the ability to support favorite creators. The service will be available as part of Apple's newly updated podcast app, where free podcasts are also found. The Apple CEO Tim Cook briefly introduced the subscription at the launch of the event and said that, quote, the biggest change to Apple Podcasts since its debut. I also noted that Apple Podcast app has been updated with newly redesigned show and episode pages that make it easier to listen, follow, and share podcasts. The app will also include new channels feature that lets you find shows from favorite creators and get recommendations. This area will include both free channels and paid channels, which feature benefits for paid subscribers. The channels themselves are grouped into shows curated by the creators with, quote, unique titles, descriptions, and artwork. The app will also include a Smart Play button that helps listeners automatically start episodic shows from the latest episode and serialized shows from the beginning of each series. Apple says other new features let users save individual episodes for offline playback, an enhanced search tab for quick access to top charts, and an updated Apple's Podcast Connect dashboard for podcasters. The dashboard allows creators to edit their show's metadata, schedule and manage show availability, organize shows into channels, manage multiple users and roles, and track how well their shows are doing via new performance metrics and visualization tools. And it says the service will be available in May to listeners in more than 170 countries and regions. And there's some quote from Eddie Q saying 15 years ago, Apple took podcasts mainstream, offering creators a premier open platform to inform, entertain, and inspire hundreds of millions of listeners around the world. Today's Apple Podcast is the best place for listeners to discover and enjoy millions of great shows, and we are proud to lead the next chapter of podcasting with Apple Podcast subscriptions. We're excited to introduce this powerful new platform to creators around the world, and we can't wait to hear what they make with it. So, again, it's just like, Apple saved podcasting or created podcasting, and it kind of comes across as they saved the music industry. They are now the leaders in podcasting. So a couple things to note as the podcast creators. And again, this is in TechCrunch, and you can find this list in our show notes at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic and it'll take you there. All right, so shows can be fully free, paid, or freemium, where there's a mix of free content anyone can access with the ability to upgrade paid subscription. Pricing starts at around 49 cents. Yes, that is 49 cents per month in the U.S., but creators can set their own pricing. Apple will take 30% of the revenue in year one, then drops it cut to 15% in year two, just like it does for streaming services and other subscription products. Podcasters can distribute their shows anywhere. They don't have to be exclusive to Apple Podcasts. Okay, so Apple is not selling ads for podcast creators. Creators keep 100% of the ad revenue. So it goes on, but Subscriptions can be for either individual shows or group of shows called channels. For example, a paid podcast subscription service, Luminary, is a channel. Podcast networks can also be channels like Radiotopia. So this is really interesting. We're going to see a different change in the landscape of podcasting. So is anybody, I know, Mike, you do podcasting. Is there anything that you've seen that, is this interesting to you?
Well, yeah, I think it's an interesting overall because the podcast space is maturing, and you have a lot of podcasters who, you know, give some freemium content and then are selling courses or upselling a certain season of their show for either giving advance access to people who pay. I think it's all good because it will continue to drive innovation in the creator side of the podcast space.
I know some of you guys are podcasters, and I don't mean to be contentious or like devil's advocate here, but I have always wondered if artists, if musicians have ever felt competitive with podcasts, or having now podcasts be in spaces that were traditionally, or have been traditionally in recent years, used primarily for streaming of music, places like Spotify and Apple Music and things like that. Whereas before, when we talked about having them in different apps, it was almost like if you want to listen to a podcast today, you go to the podcast app. But if you're in Spotify, it's presumed you're there to listen to music. And if your eye gets taken away from the album that you're listening to or the music that you're browsing, potentially those podcasts are cutting in on the listening time for artists. I'm sure it goes the other way as well, but I just wonder if any musicians have expressed, or if anyone's ever heard anyone express, that those things seem more like competitors than similar services.
I think,
I don't know
go
about
ahead, Laura.
that, but I kind of look at it as a difference between talk radio and music radio, because there are fans of talk radio and fans of music radio, and does one negate or compete with the other in that market? I'm not sure. What do you guys think? And Mike, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Please go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, that I think that the competition, I think it's more the music industry might feel some, I don't know, anger may not be the right word, but at Spotify, because Spotify is trying to define itself more now as a complete audio platform. And within the app, then of course those other audio products are going to compete with music. And I think that within Spotify, it's going to drive percentage listenership toward these other content streams.
It's something that I was talking about yesterday. I was on a similar topic, was saying that I'd like to really see some statistics that on podcasts where you compare Spotify to Apple listening behavior, because Apple Podcasts is just a separate app, whereas podcasts and Spotify, it's all within, so you're competing against music. So when I look at my stats, and I might have higher listening rates, okay, more listeners on Spotify compared to Apple, my attrition rate falls off quicker during a podcast playback on Spotify. Now, is that because people are once they're in the podcasting app, the only other competition really is like, I'm just might switch over to another podcast episode or something? Or is that along the lines of saying you're now competing against music and saying that somebody might be listening to podcasts, but, oh, yeah, it's New Music Friday, and I want to go listen to this band. So, this artist, or something, you have more distractions or opportunity, and you don't have to click to another app. You're just inside the same app. So I wonder if there is some kind of study of saying, does attrition by having a standalone app, does that affect attrition rates?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. And it seems like they're very clever, Spotify, because they're spinning it in such a way that it almost is encouraging the music business to champion these rollouts, because it gives just more options, and more people who might not have discovered it before will turn up. But what if it's the reason that Apple is doing this is because those studies have proven to be true, like you say, Peter, and they're thinking, well, if we can draw more listeners, it doesn't matter to us what they're listening to on our platform, but it certainly would matter to either the podcasters who drew their audience and are now being clicked away to music, or the musicians who drew their listeners who are now being drawn away to podcasts. It's an interesting debate.
Well, I haven't gotten to the Spotify daily update yet, but I do have something else, and I intentionally bundled these three together. So I just wanted to bring up, it's a shorter article in Digital Music News, and this one is Joe Rogan's search traffic has dropped 40% since his Spotify exclusive began. And in the article, they put up the chart of their Google search, Google Trends. So the question starts off, is Joe Rogan losing relevance following his exclusive podcast deal with Spotify? That's been a difficult question to answer, though Google search traffic data now indicates a serious drop in broader interest since the deal began. And so it starts off, reportedly received $100 million for inking his exclusive podcast deal. But that deal, which shifted all episodes onto the Spotify platform, may be damaging the podcaster comedian's overall influence. Of course, Spotify hasn't disclosed any listener data on the Joe Rogan experience, so it's been impossible to determine if followers have dropped off or increased after the shift to the streaming platform. Anecdotally, plenty of Rogan fans publicly swore off the podcast after the switch, especially after episodes stopped appearing on YouTube, and older episodes got scrubbed from the video platform. Incidentally, Spotify also deleted 42 JRE episodes prior to the transition, a move that also may be damaging overall audience interest. Others simply reported that they weren't listening to Rogan anymore, but again, it's been hard to draw any conclusions. But now there's data, so they start looking at Google Trends and the searches of Joe Rogan and related searches of Joe Rogan podcast, Joe Rogan MMA. They've all roughly dropped 40% since Spotify announced its deal last year. And so Spotify announced the deal in May of 2020. He didn't start exclusively recording for the platform until September 1st. By December 1st, episodes were only available on Spotify, and earlier episodes on YouTube and other streaming platforms were also ripped down. And at that point, Google search volumes experienced a protracted drop. In the 6 months leading up to the show's December 1st exclusive start, Google Trends data showed an average search index for Joe Rogan of 57.9. After the week of December 1st and during 2021, that index value dropped to 34.6. All right, so, this is, it suggests that his episodes aren't drawing as much attention now that they're contained within the Spotify platform. It's not a paywall problem. They're saying Spotify isn't limiting the JRE to premium subscribers, suggesting other reasons for the lowered impact. One major difference could be YouTube, which is highly viral, more open, and easier to use than Spotify, not to mention tightly integrated into Google search itself. It goes on. But there's one that is he was talking about chat. And one of the things is, they're saying he's quote, it's not as smooth as it probably should have been when we first transitioned over in December, but Spotify just wasn't ready for the volume, Rogan explained. They had never had a show. First of all, they created video because of the conversations we had about this podcast. They wanted the podcast to be audio only, and my manager was like, think about the Elon Musk moment when Elon Musk was smoking weed. That is a viral moment that only happens with video. Beyond that, Spotify hasn't integrated comments into its podcast platform and may never. Quote, that's where YouTube shines all over the other forums, is that they have comment section, and I think Spotify needs to recognize that, Rogan stated. He continued, and I've tried to talk to him about that, and there's been some discussion about putting comments, but one of the things they said is if we put comments on one podcast, we have to put them on all podcasts. But I go, why? Just put them on mine. Just put them on mine. So it's really interesting to see. I mean, I watched the Joe Rogan podcast, but never really the full episodes. I always caught like the little approximately like 15-minute clips on YouTube. I enjoy them. I would watch maybe 5 of them taken from the same podcast. I would watch them at 2x speed. It was interesting. I think the format worked well for there. And I can honestly say, since the move, I have not listened to a single Joe Rogan podcast on Spotify. Anybody else?
Yes, it's similar. I went to hit my mic and left the room by accident.
I'm shocked you found the room again after all the issues we're having with everything. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I've listened to one of his episodes on Spotify because I heard he'd interviewed someone I was really interested in, so I went and listened to it. But otherwise, it's been the same for me. I used to catch him on YouTube now and again, but since he made the move, just he's not popping up on my radar as much.
So actually, fun fact, I've never listened to podcasts ever until 2 to 3 days ago. And it was only because I really wanted to listen to Orphan Black, which is like the continuation of like the TV show. And they had 3 free episodes, I think, whatever company is doing it with, and they're on Apple, but then you have to pay for it. And I already paid for it because I wanted to listen to like the rest of the seasons. But like, I never listen to podcasts, and I actively ignore them on Spotify. Like, I get very annoyed actually seeing them because I think it should be separated, because people are going to obviously switch over quicker if you have more options of things. That's why yeah, and people will, if it's New Music Friday, like this playlist is here, oh, podcast over here. Like, you don't have to have ADHD to, like, start doing that on Spotify very simply.
Right on, exactly.
Isn't that the rabbit hole? It's easy to fall right down that rabbit hole. That's how that happens.
But they want you to.
Yeah, that's exactly how that happens. That's falling down. It happens on YouTube, can happen on Spotify too.
Well, so I was gonna say with YouTube though, because that's another thing I personally don't like using, because I just get annoyed by little things of it, like, like how it, like just all the videos, like unless I need to build something and I need to literally see how it's happening or like how to do something, there's never really, I've found a reason that I've needed YouTube that badly, or to watch a pirated like something, maybe if it was like on there. But like the quality's bad, like.
Let's be real, they call it a rabbit hole for a reason. You have no idea where it's going to come out. You have no idea where it's going to come out,
because like mine are so bad.
It's like the closet into Narnia.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Anyway,
so
speaking of the closet into Narnia, I think we're heading into our personal Narnia closet, the Spotify spot, if I'm not mistaken. So I want to take just a moment and welcome everybody into the room. If you're just joining us, we've had a couple of glitches, but thanks for coming into the room today. We're so glad you found it. We are the Music News Power Hour, and you can visit musicindustrycity.com to check out all the links to our show notes today, and also to read the articles that we are referencing. So if you want to get some more information, visit musicindustrycity.com and click on the Clubhouse show notes on musicindustrycity.com. If you're in the Clubhouse room with us and you'd like to join the discussion, please do feel free to put your hands up. If we haven't invited you to speak, it might be due to a glitch today, or it might just be because we are reading something and we haven't seen you yet. So feel free to put your hands up, which means something completely different in the Music News Power Hour room than it does at the club. So everybody, thanks for joining us. Please make sure to raise your hand, ping your friends in, and join us each weekday, Monday through Friday, 12 to 1 Eastern, for the Music News Power Hour, all the headlines that you actually care to discuss. Over to you, Peter. I think we're moving into the Spotify spot, right?
The Spotify spot. We still need the sound. We need that. Hits the spot.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah.
It's catchy.
It's really catchy. So, so we're going to wrap up, but we're going to continue on the theme that we were talking about, podcasting. So this one, and again, you can find all the show notes at musicindustrycity.com and click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic, and that'll take you to the show notes with all the links to all the headlines. And for tomorrow, is today Thursday? Are we at Thursday yet?
It's Wednesday, I think.
It really feels like, it really feels like, the fact is, this is a long show today because of all the technical issues. I feel like it's already 2 days have passed by. So we're getting through. We're having fun. But to finalize, we're going to keep all the all the links to the articles. So when we get to Friday, we can review. You can see what we talked about. So this one wrapping up is Spotify's improved podcast charts now rank individual episodes. All right, and this is Spotify is giving users the chance to discover even relatively unknown podcasts by launching a, quote, top episodes ranking for its charts. When the audio streaming service debuted the feature, it only ranked shows based on their overall numbers. Going forward, it will also look into the numbers for each individual episode, giving creators what they need to be able to show more potential listeners that their work is popular or trending, quote, even if their podcast as a whole isn't being consumed at the same volume. The feature could also give creators more incentive to promote their works on Spotify so they could move up the ranks. In addition, Spotify has launched a new web experience for the charts, allowing subscribers to view them without having to fire up their apps. Prior to its launch, the feature was only accessible by going down, browse podcast charts on the app for Android. Now its own website people can access on any device. And finally, Spotify improved upon its original top podcast ranking by taking a show's follower number into account as well. Upon launch, it only relied on, quote, recent listener numbers to determine the most popular podcast. The company says using the new metric makes it more realistic for fast-rising new shows to pierce the bubble. All right, so yeah, by introducing these changes, Spotify is giving creators the opportunity to reach a wider audience. It also gives the company more leverage in the podcast field where there's very little reliable data available. Overall, these changes mean that the chart is better able to react to new shows, fresh voices, and fast rise while giving listeners more reason to check in frequently to discover new shows. The audio streaming giant wrote in its announcements. And that is it. That is for the headlines of the day.
The Spotify spot. I love it. The Spotify spot, the big green dot. We just want to go ahead and open the floor up for our roundtable discussion today. We've covered a lot of headlines. We've covered a lot of Spotify news. Any thoughts from the stage and the panel? And if you're in the audience and you have a comment, please do feel free to put your hand up and join us, please.
I stayed away from the Joe Rogan thing because I didn't want to sway anybody's opinion, but you guys know me, and if the Rolling Stones were a person, for me, it would be Joe Rogan. But I do want to say that I always found it incredibly odd that he partnered with Spotify when, as very clearly outlined in that article, all of the things that made his show famous, popular, shareable, attractive to the non-regular listener, like the video aspect and the viral moments and all of those things are not Spotify's wheelhouse, really. So it just seemed like either no one else was coming in to make an offer, or that offer must have been absolutely enormous. Because to me, it always seemed like a vegan cooking show on the NRA website or something. Like it seems like it doesn't make sense. Those two things don't seem to go together. And I don't really see Joe Rogan's audience being your average Spotify listener, but that just might be my personal thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because when, there is purportedly like $100 million is what he was getting paid. I mean, that's a nice paycheck. And, he's been doing, people don't realize how long Rogan has been doing podcasting. You can find his first episode when it wasn't called podcasting. It was like this video cast. And he's like, his original, like, it's like, how do I do this? Are we on? Am I talking to somebody? Wait, so I press this button here and it's like episode 1. And, this is 15 years of doing this. And it's like, hey, that paycheck after all that hard work, that's a nice looking paycheck. That's a nice investment. He got to move to Austin. But here's something that also, we talk about the importance of video, and even if it's just a podcast, that was part of the experience for the Joe Rogan experience. Sorry for having to put experience twice in that sentence. But there's something that was really authentic about the simplicity of that, like 2 camera setup or 3 camera setup and just switching back and forth, and the people there, and you got to see people like really just being themselves in that sense and being open and comfortable, and smoking weed or drinking or being drunk. And there was something about the simplicity that was beauty of it. And when he moved and like said, here's my new podcast studio, and everybody was like, what the fuck is that giant red Tylenol pill tube looking space age 2001 Space Odyssey, something with bad lighting. People got, it's like, I couldn't look at it. It just lost it, like sucked the life out of it. The acoustics were so dampening in there. There was no, like, you want the room noise. You want that room tone. You want a little of that echo. That was what was natural about it. And you changed everything in one full swoop. And he's gone and changed that now. So I haven't seen it, but I heard that he has a new, better lit room. But, that was the power of video. And I feel the Joe Rogan experience was built on video, not on the podcast.
I think I'm an avid Stern listener slash watcher, have been like my entire life. My mom pretty much raised me on Howard Stern, good or bad, it is what it is. But I haven't lived in the UK. It's difficult to access it. And, obviously in real time, I'd have to get up at a ridiculous hour. But I have my mom's Sirius subscription that I can log into. And I'm able to watch the videos when he does his interviews. And I'm fascinated by just that simple 2-camera setup, and he's obviously the king of radio. But I think part of what Rogan was trying to achieve when he started his podcast was something similar, but with a West Coast, younger sort of feel, and Stern has kind of things that are very much embedded into his show and into his personality that Rogan kind of wanted to just go away from. And I think he really achieved that for that audience. I really think he did. But now the move, like going corporate, it didn't feel the way when Howard moved from terrestrial to Sirius. I mean, everybody followed him. It's just how it worked. With Rogan, it feels like he hadn't solidified that connection with his audience as deeply. And when he made the move to a sort of corporate sponsorship or a one partner exclusivity deal, it just made it feel gross. And my husband, who used to be a listener, has since not bothered, and he has a Spotify subscription. So,
well, it just shows the true difference between radio and this type of broadcast medium is that, Howard Stern, I remember Imus in the Morning and Howard Stern when they were together. I mean, as a New Yorker here, it's like that Imus in the Morning and, it's like that. And then there was the big fallout and everything. But it's radio. And then they just turned on the cameras and Howard was a voice. Howard is the voice of radio. And, he's, 5 days a week. There's a difference between 5 days a week on radio, have that connection with your audience, and also then just randomly doing some podcast episodes here and there. And I don't even know, I think Joe Rogan, when he started, it was just more like, wait, I could hang out and get drunk and smoke weed with get people on a video and hang out and just talk about shit and what we talk about, and people can watch us.
Basically go live.
Yeah. Wait, we can just do that? Yeah. What is this technology? I mean, it was before live streaming was called live streaming. And it's
but that's kind of the vibe of it, just right. Whatever you're doing, it's on the video now.
Yeah. He's always just been, I always felt it's hey, we're just two people or a few people just shooting the shit. And, we're just going to have cameras on you.
Definitely kind of that, going live vibe of just whatever happens is what winds up on the footage.
I was upset to see that you still have to listen to ads, even though you have Spotify Premium. I thought they would find some way to get rid of that. When you watch the Joe Rogan podcast, after the first 10 seconds or 15 seconds, it goes into a bunch of ads that are just been thrown in there randomly. And then in the middle of a podcast, in hour 2 of a 3-hour podcast, some bullshit sports ad for fan voting, I don't even know what it is, will come up out of nowhere. And I'm like, man, I'm paying money every month. I don't want to have ads. What's going on here? That's frustrating.
And by the way, Garrett, as a true music nerd myself, I love that you were stumbling for the word. The ad for the sports majigga thing in the one, the what you call it. And I thought
sports. Come on.
Yeah, the sports ball advertisement things. I don't know. I loved that you put it that way. I loved that. But you know what? That's the truth. And you subscribe. It's kind of the cable TV model. You thought originally when you got cable TV, you were paying for television without ads, but that is so not the case. And that, I feel like that's a whole separate discussion. I'm really glad you pointed that out. But I want to take just a moment here. We are coming down to the final few seconds. This is the Music News Power Hour. We're here weekdays, Monday through Friday, from 12 to 1 Eastern. We do try to keep it at an hour. We try to read out some headlines in the first half of the show, and then during the second half of the show, we invite you to join us on the stage for our discussion. And if you can't join us on Clubhouse, we are broadcasting live, streaming on your favorite streaming platform, audio and video. So please join us, and thank you so much to everybody who is joining us streaming and in our streaming chats. For my co-host, Peter Schwing, I want to say thank you so much for listening today, and to everybody who joined in the discussion, thanks for being here and for joining our conversation about these headlines. Great to have you as part of our discussion today.
Right on. So I just want to thank you, Eli, and we got 60 seconds on the clock. Any 1-2 sentence final thoughts, no questions, just any final thoughts, just shout it out.
I listen to a few podcasts, and I don't know if I'm ready to pay for them.
I am in upstate New York, and it's going to snow in about an hour.
Wow.
The new album that Paul McCartney released. I think it's called Imagine 3, or
Is it with the
McCartney 3
reimagined?
Imagined, with all the remixes, is
The
absolutely
reimagined.
fantastic. Take an hour. It is worth it.
I'm
Features
waiting on
Beck,
it in the
St.
mail.
Vincent.
Can we just have one at a time,
Beck, St.
please?
Vincent, and somebody else. It's all fantastic.
And so thank you so much for that, Angela. Now we all know exactly what we're going to do as soon as we end the Music News Power Hour for this Wednesday.
Right on. Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody. And Angela, Mario Kart. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow, and have a great one. Thanks for everybody tuning in over on the video live stream. Say goodbye, Eli.
Goodbye, Eli.
Right on.
Good night, Gracie.